So today we're tackling a question that's been bugging comic book fans for a while. Could Saitama from One Punch Man actually lift Thor's hammer Mjolnir?
It's a crazy matchup, right? We've got Saitama pure strength versus this mythical weapon with all its rules and magic.
And that's what we're going to unpack today. But first things first, we're assuming Odin's enchantment is like, nope, Saitama, you're not worthy.
Yeah.
But could his raw power actually overcome the enchantment? That's what we're really digging into.
It's the classic unstoppable force versus immovable object. And with Saitama in the mix, anything could happen.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's do a quick Mjolnir refresher. What makes this hammer so special in the first place?
All right, so that inscription on Mjolnir, the whole "whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor," that's not just for show. That's a real deal magic enchantment.
Right. I mean, it's not just about being a good guy. Even Superman, the ultimate Boy Scout, couldn't lift it that one time.
Yeah, exactly. There was this crossover event where Superman tried to lift Mjolnir, and nothing. Not even with all his Kryptonian strength.
So it's not about being strong
Yeah.
or even a good person. It's something else, something more specific.
Right. It seems like the enchantment is looking for a very particular kind of spirit, like a true warrior spirit. And in that moment, Superman didn't fit the bill.
Okay. So we've got this super picky hammer on one side, and on the other, we've got Saitama. I mean, this guy can jump from the moon and punch away planet-destroying attacks like it's nothing.
Saitama is just built different. His power isn't just about strength. It's about breaking limits.
Yeah.
It's like he's a video game character who hacked the system.
So he's not just stronger. He's playing on a whole other level. Like he found a cheat code.
And there's a theory for that. Dr. Genus, this scientist who studied Saitama, he called it the removed limiter theory. Basically, Saitama has removed all the caps on his potential.
So like there's no ceiling to how strong he can get.
That's the idea. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting, because Mjolnir's magic works by getting heavier, the harder you try to lift it. And Saitama has potentially infinite strength.
So what happens when those two forces collide?
Well, the source we're looking at suggests it wouldn't be pretty. We could be talking planet-shattering levels of energy before the hammer even budges.
Okay, that sounds intense. But here's another thought. What if this removed limiter thing isn't just about physical strength?
Right, what if it applies to every limit?
Even magic.
Even magic. Think about it. We've seen Saitama do some crazy things. He's punched through dimensions, kicked aside interdimensional portals, even shrugged off psychic powers that could crush mountains. It's like the rules we take for granted just don't apply to him.
So he could just ignore magic, like it's not even there.
That's one way to look at it. I mean, it fits his character perfectly. He's the ultimate rule breaker.
Yeah.
So why should magic be any different?
So it sounds like Mjolnir is trying to play by the rules, but Saitama is just like, nope, I make my own rules now. Yeah, pretty much. And that's just scratching the surface. We'll dive even deeper into what this means for Saitama's power in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. This is getting good. Okay, so we're saying Saitama might be able to lift Mjolnir, not by being crazy strong, but by basically ignoring the magic that makes it so heavy. But what really gets me is what else could he do if he can just break the rules like that?
That's the really mind-blowing part, right? If this remove limiter thing really does apply to everything, the possibilities are kind of terrifying. I mean, we've already seen him punch through dimensions, but what if he could control time or even like rewrite reality itself?
Well, hold on. Are we saying Saitama could be like a god?
I mean, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Think about it. If he can break Abway rule, where does that leave the laws of physics, the laws of magic, even morality?
Okay, I need a second to process this. So we're not saying Saitama is a god, but his power is so unique, so different from anything else we've seen, that it makes us question what's even possible for beings like gods. Exactly. And the source we're looking at doesn't give us a straight answer, which makes it even more interesting. We're left to wonder and explore what it means to have power that seems to have no limits.
Okay, so let's bring it back down to earth for a sec.
Yeah.
What are some actual examples of things Saitama might be able to do if his power really is limitless?
Well, the source throws out some pretty wild ideas. Like, what if he could just control all energy in the universe, or manipulate the very fabric of space and time? Imagine Saitama casually walking through walls or teleporting across galaxies.
Yeah, that's definitely getting into God territory. But hold on. How does any of this connect back to Mjolnir? We went on a bit of a tangent there.
It all comes back to this idea of limitations. If Saitama can lift Mjolnir by basically ignoring its magic, it means his power operates on a level that's above even divine enchantments. It's like saying the gods can't set rules that bind him.
So even if Odin, the literal Allfather, said, "Thou shalt not lift this hammer," Saitama could just shrug and pick it up anyway.
Basically, yeah. And that has some serious implications for how we think about power in both the One Punch Man universe and the Marvel universe. It's like Saitama's playing a completely different game, one where our rules just don't apply.
It's kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
This seemingly goofy, laid-back dude might actually be the most powerful being in existence. Makes those monster fights in his own world seem a bit pointless, doesn't it?
Right. It's like he's playing in a sandbox while everyone else is trying to climb Mount Everest, but it also adds this whole other layer to his character. He's not just a comedic powerhouse, he's a walking, talking paradox, a being that challenges our understanding of what's even possible.
So where does that leave us? We started with a simple question.
Mm.
Could Saitama lift Thor's hammer? And we ended up questioning the nature of reality and the limits of power.
It's been quite the journey, right? And we're not done yet. There's one more big question we need to tackle, the question of WHY.
Oh yeah. We've been so focused on what Saitama can do that we haven't really stopped to ask why he can do it in the first place. So we've gone from a magical hammer to questioning the fabric of reality. Pretty heavy stuff for one deep dive. But there's one last piece of this puzzle we haven't looked at.
We've talked about what Saitama can do, how his power might even let him sidestep magic. But the question that really gets me is, why?
Why is Saitama like this? Why does H have this seemingly limitless potential, while everyone else, even the most powerful beings, seem to have some kind of ceiling on their abilities?
Right. We've been so busy figuring out if he could lift Thor's hammer. We haven't stopped to ask why he's even capable of that kind of power.
And honestly, the source we're looking at doesn't give us a clear answer.
It doesn't, which I think is part of what makes this whole thing so interesting. We're left with this character who completely defies our expectations, who forces us to question our assumptions about power, not just in comics, but maybe even in our own lives.
So you're saying instead of looking for a definitive answer, we should focus on the questions themselves. Like, what is Saitama's existence? Tell us about the nature of limitations.
Exactly. What if the source is inviting us to examine our own WN limiters, the ones we put on ourselves, on our thinking, on what we believe we can achieve? What would it mean for us to break free from those limits?
Whoa. Okay, now we're getting philosophical.
Yeah.
Right, I see what you mean. It's like Saitama is this walking, punching metaphor for pushing past the boundaries we set for ourselves.
I like that. A walking, punching metaphor. And that's what makes this whole discussion bigger than just a comic book debate. It's a thought experiment, a way to challenge our assumptions, and maybe even inspire us to reach for something beyond what we think is possible.
So let's wrap this up. We started by asking if Saitama could lift Thor's hammer, and we ended up on this crazy journey through cosmic power magic, and even the nature of human potential. What's the big takeaway? What do we want our listeners thinking about long after this episode is over?
I think the most important thing is this. Don't be afraid to question the rules, to challenge the limits. You think you know Saitama's story, whether he could actually lift Mjolnir or not, is a reminder that we often set our own boundaries. And who knows, maybe just maybe, there's a bit of Saitama in all of us waiting to break free and achieve something truly extraordinary.
Well said. And on that note, we're signing off. But keep those minds open, keep those imaginations firing, and maybe you'll find yourselves lifting a few impossible hammers of your own.